Hi everyone. This video was at first going to specifically talk about Bonnie Bennett from the Vampire Diaries and the controversy that's recently sort of come up more into the forefront in the last week or so. But before I start that part of this video, I wanted to read a few comments concerning the character of Rue from the Hunger Games. Now, these are taken from Twitter. There is a whole list of them on a website. I'll link to it so you know I'm not making this up. These are things that people not just said, but they published online for anyone to see. I won't name the names, but I'll let you know when I go from one to another. 1. Why does Rue have to be black? Not gonna lie, kinda ruined the movie. Next. Senna and Rue weren't supposed to be black. Why did the producers make all the good characters black? Shake my head. Next. Why is Rue a little black girl? Hashtag. Stick to the book, dude, at the Hunger Games. Next. And the one that I think is probably the most telling of these. KK, call me racist, but when I found out Rue was black, her death wasn't as sad. Hashtag, I hate myself. Next, I was pumped about the Hunger Games until I heard a black girl was playing Rue. Next, and for the record, I'm still pissed Rue's black. Like, you think she might have mentioned that? Or that just me? Next, after watching the Hunger Games preview 6 times in a row, I realized Rue is black. What? Next, to all of my Hunger Game readers out there, did anyone picture Rue as black? No offense or anything, but I just didn't see her like that. Next. Ew, capital EWW. Rue is black? I'm not watching. Next. I know, Rue is too black for what I pictured, but PETA is nom-worthy. Next. How in the world are they gonna make Rue a freaking black bitch in the movie? LOL, LOL, not to be racist, but I'm angry right now. Next. Nah, just picture darker skin. Didn't really take it all the way to black. Next. And the last one. Since when has Rue been a nigger? Those are comments that were posted online about the character of Rue, who is played by, I believe, a 10, 11, 12-year-old girl in the movie. And the comment about the death of Rue not being important to that one person after they found out that the character was black instead of white. You know, at first I was just really, really bothered by that especially. But when I thought about it, I just think to myself, in shows, people kill off black characters, token black characters, mind you, all the time without thought or a clue, and it gets completely ignored because, you know, if it's a show where everyone dies in, suddenly people forget that black characters have been getting this sort of treatment for years and years and years, and this is just perpetuating that. But because it's a violent show or a show that has a lot of, you know, deaths, usually it's like, well, it's okay. Completely ignoring the fact that this has been happening forever. You know, and beyond just Rue, who, by the way, if you read the books, is described as black. And while Senna, I personally saw him as Asian, but there's no description for his character really racially or ethnically, so he could be played by any race. So it's not a case of, oh, we want to have inclusion in this story. There was already inclusion in it. You know, beyond that, if you look at the Harry Potter fandom and Angela Johnson, who's married to George Weasley, you know, when they have pictures of her, a lot of people turn her white because they feel more comfortable with her like that because they didn't picture her as black, and when they found out, they still decided, no, she's still white. And with that, they even make pictures of her children with George look completely Caucasian. They have no ethical markers to speak of. Cora, from The Legend of Korra, who isn't even out yet, people have been whitewashing her character and taking away her color because they're like, well, she's only tan, she's not black, it doesn't matter. And these things have been going on and on and on. And there's always a billion and one excuses as to why it's okay. Even with the Angela Johnson thing, people are like, when I was a kid and I read the books, I pictured her as white, so in my mind she's always white. And alright, you were a kid and you read a book, and you probably didn't have any idea of color, and so you just decided, I'm going to make these characters white, because in our society, white's the default, and you know, that cannot be denied, and I even do it too. Unless a character is described as being something else, I assume they're white. But then you have them being told of being people of color. You know, with the exception of maybe Blaze Zambini, who no one knew if it was a boy or a girl, black, white, whatever. Most of the characters, they gave you some notice of what they were, ethnically or racially. And to have that just be ignored as you grow up and as you become an adult and become aware of that, and to excuse the whitewashing of these characters, to me, is very bothersome. Because it's not just that they do it, it's just that people defend them and it no longer becomes a big deal. People simply do not care that this is being done to people of color, and not just, you know, blacks, but Asian characters as well, from The Last Airbender. It's not just, you know, black people. I'm not just speaking for black people, I'm talking for all people of color and all ethnic groups. They are willing to take that away, because to them it doesn't matter. You saw it in The Last Airbender movie. You know, these are all Pan-Asian societies with Pan-Asian names and cultures and everything like that, but because they don't look a certain way, they just get completely pushed aside and no, they're just white, or they're just really tan people. They can't be, you know, Inuit, Korean, Chinese, because to them, that's not how they saw it. And that is a problem when you are trying to talk about diversifying things. And when you constantly have these problems and they're being ignored, you cannot excuse these genres who kill off the only minority characters that they have. And hence we come back to the Bonnie Bennett problem in The Vampire Diaries. Now, in the books The Vampire Diaries, Bonnie was a white girl. She was white of Irish descent and she was a druid. She was sort of a central character, not a main lead like she is, like, not just saying like in the books, it's mainly, you know, the Triangle and Elena, but it was Elena, Meredith, and Bonnie as the main female characters. Bonnie had a different personality there. She was a lot more naive, a lot more gentle, but she was still a main part. You know, her love interest was Matt. She had some sort of a romantic attachment to Damon, very strongly. They had a very close bond, and they had a lot of stuff together. She wasn't so much so that she was popular that she had her own cover as a book character in the show, in the books. So she wasn't a nobody. This wasn't a character that didn't have a role in the series. She certainly did. It was portrayed in a different way, but she had a role, she had a stable life, she had people in her life, and we knew where she came from and stuff. She was a well-defined character, whether you think her character was good or not, personality-wise and the like. Then we come to the character of Bonnie Bennett, who was changed from a white woman to an African-American woman. And since becoming a witch, her character has developed extremely poorly, has been treated with the worst storylines out of any of the characters, and she is the only person of color character on the show who can be considered a main character. She's not one of the leads like Elena, Damon, and Stefan, but she's one of the essential main characters. And yet, her character is constantly being shafted by both the writers and the fandom. And the fandom, that's their own opinion, we won't get into that. But the writers themselves do not treat her character with any care, any sense of power, and they pigeonhole her into roles which, because of her race and because of the setting of the show and the kind of things that they talk about and how they put the witches in a position of servitude to the vampires, who most of them we've seen are white, it becomes a problem that I don't think the writers are aware of, but should be. Now, I'm not sure exactly when, but I have the whole link in the sources down below. People were writing to Julie Plec on Tumblr about talking about they want Bonnie with Cole or whatever, why they want to put her with Jamie and whatnot. And then Julie decided to make a comment back and talking about how, you know, you don't want her with a nice, caring guy because, you know, they share the same guardian. you know, first of all, like, I have never sent comments to Julie Plec because I don't think she'll read them, and I don't care to bother her about it. It's, you know, she's not going to do anything about it. She won't respond to anything that I would say about it, so why bother? She was trying to do this stupid nonsense, and it doesn't even get solved, because the thing is that the point is being missed. And a lot of people are also missing the point. No one, I will speak for Bonnie fans. If I'm wrong, forgive me. We do not want, nor truly care, who Bonnie is shipped with, essentially. I know I don't. If I knew Bonnie would be given good screen time, good development, and being taken out of magical Negro status while being single, I would support her being single, independent, great. I'll just ship her with people in fanfiction, fandom, garbage, whatever. That's what I would do. That's not going to happen. In this show, how it has been set up, there have been love triangles after love triangles after love triangles. Being a romantic interest of someone essential to the plot is how characters get developed. It's what happened with Matt, Tyler, Caroline, all of them. And Bonnie has been constantly neglected by being put with people who are not part of the A plot, or not part of a main story. The reason why people want to put her with Klaus and Damon, besides the sexual attraction and stuff like that, is because that will lead to more storylines and more character development for Bonnie. And that's important because she is the only minority character on the show, and you don't give her a storyline. Her storylines are completely facilitated by being the servant or the helper or the spiritual caretaker of Elena and her vampire harem. And it's insulting without trying to be. You know, just to talk about, and also people are going to be like, well, Matt, Tyler, they're also side characters, they don't get amazing development. It's not, when you compare Matt Donovan's character to Bonnie's character, it's an unequal comparison for multiple reasons. First of all, you're comparing two unequal things. A white male character and a black female character are not on the same level of treatment or exposure in the media in a positive light at all. So first of all, that comparison, I throw it out the way because that doesn't make any sense to me. But more structured to the storyline, Bonnie has always been part of the A plot. Bonnie has always been part of whatever direct conflict has been going on because of her duty as a witch, because she's a close friend of the characters, and because she's one of the few people in Mystic Falls who knows about everything that's going on. She has always since she's been a witch, been part of the main storyline, with the device, with the Wolfstone, with everything now with Klaus. Always has she been part of the A plot. Yet she does not get that kind of A plot development, which has been given solely to Caroline. And all we want is to get some of that for us. Because when you look at how the Vampire Diaries has relationships, you have only 3 female leads, mainly. Elena, Caroline, and Bonnie. Elena has been with Damon, Stefan, Matt, and these are people, and has romantic, Elena has had romantic connections with Stefan, Damon, Matt, and Elijah. All important members of the cast, all important members of the story, all play a big role in the A plot. Caroline has been involved with Tyler, Matt, Klaus, and you can question whether she's been involved with Damon directly because they did have a thing going on, but it's part compulsion. So how far you want to call this true has been about. Tyler has become part of the A plot since season 2 when they got together. Matt, while he was also part of the B plot, their relationship helped Caroline and him grow. A big part of her character development was through her relationship with Matt. Klaus now, definitely part of the main plot. He's the main villain, and they've been using Caroline to kind of, you know, go with him and stuff, so that's important. Then you have Damon, who's one of the main 3 characters. So everyone she's been with also pretty much either part of the main plot for 3 or for 1 was major character development. Bonnie has been with Jeremy. She's had people, like she's had 2 guys, Luca, if you want to count him, he's dead, and he was a traitor and tried to use her to get magic. That one guy who was a vampire tried to get with her, he's dead. The one who The black guy that Caroline ate, he's dead. The only person she's been in a romantic relationship successfully is Jeremy, and he cheated on her with a ghost. And when they were together, he was not part of any main plot, so they didn't have to have any scenes together that brought any development for either of them. So there was no development from that relationship. And now she's going to put up with Jamie, who is, in all the sense of purposes, her stepbrother. Her mother walked out on her when she was a child, and she got with this guy, and she helped raise this kid. So the kid that her mother left her and went to raise, that's who she's going to be her love interest. He's not important to the A-plot. He has no role outside of being Bonnie's love interest. That will not get her any extra screen time. That will not get her any extra character development. It's meaningless to the story besides romantic interest. Every other couple that I've mentioned for Elena and Caroline helps either the main story or them as characters develop. And it gives them the ability to be shown more often and get more development as characters. None of that for Bonnie. That's the only reason why the love interest thing is important. Otherwise, who gives a crap? You know, Bonnie has been from the beginning a magical Negro. Since she had her powers, that's all she does. She helps them do everything with her magic. That's her role in the show. And it's not enough. And as to the whole thing with, you know, the death of, like, white characters versus black characters, you know, I have a lot of people arguing this with me, and it was the same thing when I talked about Buffy. So I'm just going to put it how I felt it worked best for me to explain. Of the white leading characters, and I count Tyler as this, even though his actor is Latino, the character of Tyler is not Latino. So I'm talking about the characters that and these are people who have been in more than a handful of episodes. These are important characters to the story. They're not just like, you know, I didn't put Mason in there or little throwaways. And if I'm missing anyone, you know, let me know. But here's how it is. You have, for the white leads, you have Elena, Damon, Caroline, Matt, Jeremy, Anna, Alaric, Vicky, Catherine, Klaus, Elijah, Rebecca, and Tyler. That's 13. Out of all of the ones that are dead, Jenna, Vicky. Alaric may or may not die, so you have 10 of the main ones. And even let's say you kill, so I already said you had Jenna and Vicky and maybe Alaric. Even if you got rid of Klaus, Elijah, and Rebecca, you still have Elena, Damon, Stefan, Caroline, Matt, Jeremy, and Catherine, and Tyler. You still have 8 characters. Now, of people of color in the Vampire Diaries, of important characters, kind of, because some of them I just had to put in here just so I could, you know, have a bigger list. Bonnie, Anna, Pearl, Harper, Luca, Luca's dad, Grams, Emily, if you kind of want to count her in, I suppose. Who else might people want to put in? I don't count Bonnie's mother or Jamie because they've only been in like, what, 2-3 episodes so far. That's not important. Emily I just count because she's kind of really important to the main A plot. But that's 8 characters altogether. If anyone you think I should add, you know, like Greta or something, let me know. But dead, Bonnie. That's it. And to even go beyond the Vampire Diaries, looking at the character of Tara, you know, if you are familiar with the Sookie Stackhouse novels, Tara was originally a white character, and while she comes from a drunken mother, you know, she has her own business, she's successful financially, and she's married. I don't know if she's had any kids yet, but she has a stable life. Tara in the show, she's an angry black woman, she gets beaten, abused, completely torn apart, and she's one of the token black female characters on the show, and there are no other people of color on there besides her and Lafayette. And Lafayette is problematic himself. They just killed Jesus. If Tara comes back and she's alive for the next season, we'll see. But you have a woman who's being constantly victimized and beaten up and getting raped, getting abused. Her whole life is out of the fucking chain. But in the books, when she's a white character, she has this stable, great life. But when you change her, you make her this punching bag. it boggles the mind. People of color leads in a show. Like, if you had Bonnie, Anna, and Pearl, I'll put them together on this show, and you kill the rest of them off, fine. Because at least you give us 3. At least we have something. At least it's not just one character that it has to carry on all diversity. And the messed up part is that this is in the South. I mean, this is in Virginia. Like, there are black people in Virginia. There are people of color in these places. It's not every, show they do is in some, like, backwards other town. Like, think about Friends, which is supposed to be in New York City. There were no people of color there until, like, the last season. But it's okay for some reason. Like, even with Buffy, as I was going through and thinking about the people of color characters in that show, first of all, you don't have any in the main cast. I mean, you have, I won't count Willow because she's supposed to be Jewish, and I'll count her out. But of the main characters, throughout all seasons of the show, you have Buffy, Xander, Giles, Cordelia, Anya, Oz, Dawn, Spike, Riley, Angel. They're all white. Those are the main characters. Tara, she wasn't really a main character, but she kind of was. But if you want to count them, that's 10 people, all white. And then the characters you have are either villains or they die right after they appear. And in the last season, you get the potentials, who are pretty much only there to prove that Buffy's awesome. So they serve no better purpose than to be fodder for the background. And Kennedy, who's Latina, is probably the most hated character in Buffy that you can get. So, what? Like, so it's okay for them to not have any role in these shows and just to die like rats. And then there's none of them to represent anyone else in the show. Like, you have 10 white leads, so you can kill off as many as you want, but you still have representation. You're still in the show. You're still seen as part of something. But when they all die, you're left with one if you're lucky. And before anyone says it, no, I'm not trying to say, like, everything has to be perfectly diverse. Everything has to be perfect. You have to force people of color into things where it doesn't belong. My thing is, if you're going to have people of color in your show, don't just make them food or your tokens, because we can tell. We can tell when you put effort into these characters and try to make them interesting. We can tell when you're just doing it so you can be like, look, we have diversity, or when you're doing it because you actually want to write well-written, developed characters. And the thing about it is that these little things that you do lead to stuff like that. Of people saying, why is Rue black? Why is she there? I don't care that she died anymore because she's a black girl. I mean, these are not things that just one person thinks. Obviously not. There's a whole list of people who think this way and feel this way. It's a problem, and the media perpetuates it constantly, and it's allowed because everyone has a million excuses as to why something cannot be racist, because for some reason it's more insulting to be called racist than to actually deal with racism. And because we have been taught to expect nothing, when we get anything, it's like gold. And that's wrong. That's a problem. It's the reason why people give so much praise to Glee for a character like Kurt, who is nothing but a cacophony of stereotypes, but because they show a prominent gay male in television, it's seen as great. Look at Will and Grace. I mean, people loved it and it was seen as so progressive, but yet it still just supported the status quo. I mean, you never got to see Jack or Will make out really heavily with their partner, and if they did, please correct me because I want to know. But we expect nothing, and then when we get something, it has to be revered for some reason, when it doesn't do anything progressive for anyone. And I think that even if you don't see anything wrong with these characters, you have to think about what they give off. Just because it doesn't seem like a bad thing in the beginning does not mean it means nothing. I feel like there's a Richter scale of racism for people where only a lynching or, a real hate crime is seen as serious, but anything that's like subconscious or not overtly hateful is like whatever. it's boring, who cares? I mean, having to explain to people why Song of the South is a problematic movie is so frustrating because everyone's like, it's boring, who cares? It's not about the fact that there's no lynching or KKK people or burning crosses. It's about what it's supposed to be telling about a group of people to a majority who already feels this way. Anyway, I've been ranting, I've been raving, and I know you guys get frustrated with me, but I really think this is important for everyone to think about and to talk about because this affects people every day. And disagree with me, agree with me, whatever, as long as we get dialogue going on, that's the goal, that's the important thing. Thank you very much. I'm gonna go get a drink of water.